Hello and welcome to my garden tour. My name's Ben and this is my garden. I am also an amateur rose breeder. My garden, I would suppose, would be classed as messy to some, but it's a rose paradise to other people's. So this was the border that I showed you in my last video, the Zephyrin and the foxgloves. Here we have a rose called Intrigue, very beautiful deep red. Here is a rose, it's a David Austin called Fighting Temerary. Can you see that bee is loving that? And it has huge blooms. They start off quite small, like this, and then they open out completely to that. And to give you an idea, this is my hand in comparison to it. Isn't it very beautiful? Oh, and it's very fragrant as well. The next rose is La Reine Victoria, an old Bourbon rose, or bourbon, whichever way you want to pronounce it. And this is also very fragrant as well. Here is a rose called Aloha. Some of you might know that this has been used in early breeding of David Austin roses, and the rose I just showed you is actually distantly related to it. Very beautiful fragrance. I'd say it has a sort of strong damask fragrance, very sweet. One of my favourites. It's a climber and can also be grown as a shrub. It does quite well for me here. Next we have Harlow Car, extremely thorny rose, catches me every day as I walk past it. Lovely sweet fragrance, but terrible thorns. Moving on, this rose here is called Quatre Saisons, or Autumn Damask. Extremely strong fragrance, old rose. Lots more buds coming. It does have a sort of muddled appearance, but the muddled appearance makes up for in fragrance, and it's one of the most strongest roses I have in the garden. Underneath it is a similar rose. It's starting to go over now. This one's called Bouquet de la Marie. And that's this as this opening out. Very beautiful. This is classed as a noisette and hybrid perpetual, but it's also sold as a damask rose, as they are very distantly related. And it sort of has this white and pink in it. The next rose is called Sentimental. I definitely say it's more floribunda than hybrid tea, but it does have large hybrid tea-like bloom leaves. Very beautiful. And then the next rose I want to show you, this one is called Dolce, or Very Berry. It's by a breeder from Serbia and the Netherlands. They sort of have a joint venture together. And it, Finogeno, I think it's pronounced, or Finogeno, I'm not entirely sure. But see the sun catch it. But it's a very beautiful rose, very healthy and fragrant. And the roses from this breeder are ones to look out for, and I have a few in my garden which I will show you shortly. This is also another, I'll call it Finogeno. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. It just has some buds on it, and next to it is a rose called The Boys. I got it from a nursery called R.V. Rogers. Unfortunately, I don't have any more information on it, who bred it or anything, unfortunately. Next I have some Nigella growing. And the next rose I want to show you is called Bella Select. It's been in bloom for weeks, and it just goes on and on. And the foliage, I'm not joking you, is huge. See see how large that foliage is. Very healthy. Unfortunately it flops a little, but what it does when it flops, it makes up for in beauty. Sometimes I smell a sweet fragrance, other times I smell nothing at all, so I think it really depends. This next rose is called Queen Bee. It's just starting to open. And this next rose here is called Autumn Fire. I think it's also known as Herbstfeuer in German. Blooms last ages. These have been on here for several weeks, and each bloom just goes on and on. Has a light fragrance and is a hybrid sweet briar, and it's key to my breeding. Very beautiful. This is a shrub to climber, and it does bloom mainly during the spring to summertime, but might give me an autumn flush, who knows. The next rose here is called Corona, and these are all slightly related to each other, which I'll explain. The next one here is Chinatown, and here's some more Chinatown just opening. There's its bud. And that rose there is called Gold Bush, which is very similar to Autumn Fire in that it's a hybrid sweet briar. Very beautiful, healthy roses, last ages. Gold Bush, its bloom only lasts 3 to 4 days at the most. It doesn't last as long as this one, as an example, but it's still very beautiful. And this next rose here is called Freesia or Coresia. Very beautiful Floribunda rose. And here is the other side of Gold Bush. Very beautiful blooms. Light fragrance to that, but still very lovely. And as we go over here, this is the first time I'm seeing it. This is Donahue, which was introduced, I believe, last year by David Austin. And it's just starting to open now. And this lovely one next to it is LD Braithwaite, an old David Austin rose, very beautiful. I don't detect any fragrance, unfortunately. And this one here is Gabriel Oak, very large blooms, very fragrant. Here I have some more Gabriel Oak. These blooms are not as big. Gives you an idea, that's what it looks like in the sun. And this one here is Rhapsody in Blue. I thought it was blue for you, but as there's no white underneath, it is Rhapsody in Blue, and that's how you tell the difference between the two. The next rose here is called Old Port. Very beautiful, fragrant Floribunda rose. And the next rose I want to show you here, with absolutely gigantic blooms. This is called Pause. This is a Peter Beals rose. Extremely thorny. Huge blooms. Believe it or not, this is bred from Constant Spry and a hybrid tea rose called Silver Jubilee. So I guess it's a part David Austin rose. Very beautiful, very fragrant. This is Odyssey, as I showed you in my last video, and this is what the bloom looks like when it's just starting to open. Isn't that really beautiful? Very fragrant. And obviously that's LD Braithwaite, that's Donahue. And as we come around here, I'll show you this. This is Christopher Marlowe. The bloom is starting to go over a little now, but gives you an idea. It's sort of like it has several colours. If I can just try and show you the undersides. And let's just see. There you go, there's another bloom. This one's also very fragrant, it's lovely. It did suffer a little black spot, but it seems to have perked up a little bit now. This next rose I believe is Clear Austin. To be honest, it doesn't seem to do very well for me, or at least the earlier blooms never did anyway. If I can just show you. Does it have a fragrance? Oh yes, very beautiful. These ones have very funny petals because sort of like a balloon flower is what I call them. Next rose here is James Galway. Absolutely huge blooms. And this one obviously is distantly related to Aloha, which I showed you, and Fighting Turamariri. And then this huge one here next to it is Princess Alexandra of Kent. Full bloom there. Starting to go over a little bit now. Huge blooms, wonderful fragrance. And these are mainly the Austin patch here. These are the ones I showed you yesterday. Angela has more blooms coming out on it today. And then La Sevillana, and then the border over this side. This next rose is called Pearl Drift. Unfortunately started to develop some disease. I don't know if it's its location in the shade, but it's still very beautiful. And the next rose I want to show you, this is called Jane Austen. This is a Harkness rose. And it's named after the writer. Very strong tea fragrance this one has. The next rose I want to show you is Night Owl. Very beautiful deep purple blooms. And the rose next to it is Baroness Rothschild. This is an old rose, hybrid perpetual. This rose is called St. Ethelberga, Peter Beale's rose. Very beautiful, very fragrant. This rose here is called Cecil Bruner. It's a Polyantha rose. This is my Polyantha area. This rose here is the Fairy White, and it has often these red flecks in them. It's a rose I've had for many years and always does really well, but it does suffer a little black spot on times, but it just shakes it off and sends out all this glossy new foliage. And the next rose I want to show you, this is called Louise Clements. This is also related to a David Austin rose. Very beautiful but slightly floppy, although the newer growth seems to be more upright. Next we have Cream Abundance, at least I believe it is. And then Albeth, which is a Peter Beale's rose, which is bred from English Miss. And I also believe a Bourbon rose, which I do have in my garden. And here are some more buds just starting to open. This one is called Pearl. It's sort of at the end now, but it's very beautiful. This next rose is called Madrigal, or Fetza Soraya. It's a Harkness rose. Some say it has really bad disease resistance, but it seems perfectly healthy and glossy for me. This rose is called Masquerade. It sort of starts off this usually orangey red and opens to this multi-tone before fading out to almost completely red. This next rose is a hybrid perpetual called Souvenir de Dr. Germain. The blooms are starting to go over a little bit now, but it's very fragrant and beautiful. and it's best grown in part shade where it's kept from the hottest afternoon sunshine. This is the Alexandra rose, just starting to open. This is a David Austin, an Alba hybrid. Very beautiful. Only a light fragrance. And this next rose here is called Leander. It's past its best, but I do have some new buds just opening, some more Nigella as well. This next rose is called Henri Martin. It's a moss rose, and I'll show you. This is extremely fawning and Barbie right at the back, to give you an idea. It does have a bit of a floppy habit, unfortunately, but it only blooms for me once, but it's still very pretty. This next rose is Iceberg. Very beautiful. Classed as a floribunda, but its breeding is of a hybrid tea and a hybrid musk, and was used David Austin breeding for his hybrid musk line. This next rose is called Cornelia. This is a hybrid musk. As you can see, the leaves on here are quite similar to the leaves on Iceberg. So it's a bit more of Cornelia. It's starting to go a little past its best now because it's been in bloom for weeks. Here is a better view of it. This next rose is Vanessa Bell, which is a David Austin rose, and is within the hybrid musk line. But I wouldn't say that the leaves are that similar, or maybe just a little. If I compare it to this rose, which is Bouquet Parfait, and then there's this one, which is Ballerina, which are both yet to bloom for me. But all these are classed as hybrid musks. But yeah, this is Vanessa Bell. She's new for me this year. Has beautiful blooms. Now, what I'm moving on to next has been bred from a rose called Comte de Chambord. And this is called the Countryman. This is another David Austin rose. And here we have Gertrude Jekyll, which has also been bred from Comte de Chambord. They are very similar breeding. So they are related to Portland roses, which in turn are related to the damask roses, which I showed you earlier in the video. This has the most beautiful fragrance, one of the strongest in the garden, very similar to autumn damask, I would say. And this next rose here is Abraham Darby. This also has a very, very strong fragrance. And this lovely rose here is Mary Rose. Has a nice fragrance. It's said that it's old rose. It sort of smells to me similar to myrrh. It has that myrrh fragrance that Austin is famous for, which comes from Constant Spry. And the next rose here is Winston Churchill. Introduced through Peter Beals, but I believe it's a different breeder who bred it. This one's also very fragrant. And this next rose here is called Claire Renaissance, also known as Liliana, a lovely shrub rose. Now this stem here is doing something slightly different. It seems to keep throwing out yellow flowers instead of this usual pink that it does, and it's a more of an orangey sort of colour. So perhaps I'm looking at a potential sport here, who knows. but that's Clear Renaissance. One of my favourite roses, and I do use it a lot within my breeding. Here is Lady of Shalott, just starting to open. A lovely fresh new bloom. And next to it is starting to go over a little bit is Champagne Moment, also known as the Lion's Rose. And this lovely rose here I want to show you is another of those Phenogena roses. This has a very, very beautiful fragrance. This is called Perfumed Passion. It's also known as a Draga Frailer. Very healthy foliage. And I recently bought it from Dobby's Garden Centre, where they sell a lot of Phenogena roses. So this one's Perfumed Passion. It doesn't grow very big. It grows to about 2 foot, I think, at the most. So it's just a very small shrub. And this next rose I want to show you is called Marie Curie. It's a Floribunda shrub. I would definitely say more shrubby for me. Has the most beautiful blooms, very fragrant, and the foliage is very healthy as well. So I do have to stake this a little bit because it has a slightly floppy habit for me. But what it does in its floppiness makes up for in its beauty and fragrance. Here we have some more Nigella. It's self-seeded everywhere, which is lovely though, because I think it's beautiful and it sort of fills out these pots. And then once they go over, you're left with these beautiful seed pods. This rose next to it is Bonica. And then this rose here is Ivor's Rose, which, believe it or not, is from Bonica, I believe. And this next rose is called Emperor Charles. It's beautiful fragrance and blooms. And then we have another Peter Beals rose. This is Evelyn May. And then we have Macmillanus, which is also from Bonica. Look at those blooms, the contrast between the two. This next lovely rose is called English Miss. Very, very beautiful. It sort of starts off like a white cream and then sort of fades out with this pink edging. Can you see? Extremely fragrant, this variety. Another little foxglove, self-seeded here. Very pretty. I'm not entirely sure what this variety is. I think it could very well be Schoolgirl. I'm not sure. And here we have the Crocus Rose by David Austin. Discontinued now, but I managed to get one from Trevor White. This one is Eglantine, or Eglantine, whichever one you want to pronounce it. Also David Austin Rose. That's very, very beautiful. Blooms there. This variety here is a Bourbon China rose called Hermosa. Not much fragrance, but very beautiful. Just going over now. This rose here is Florentina. I grow it as a shrub rose rather than a climber. And for me, it does better that way. Has very, very beautiful blooms. And you can obviously enjoy them up close. It has a little fragrance, I just detect some. And this rose has not done too well for me, unfortunately. This one is called Leonardo da Vinci. It stays very small and gets black spots, so Florentina. And this rose here is Jasmina. This one is a David Austin called Queen Anne, probably a little past its best, all the There's a new bud just opening there. That rose there, just opening, the yellow, is called Grandma's Rose. That's also a lovely variety. And this rose is Barbara Austin, although slightly going over now and is all but faded out to white. But it was beautiful during its peak. This rose here is Eden Rose, which unfortunately does really nothing for me. It just sends out one bloom, that's it. That's all I've got. This rose is called Lady Hillingdon. It has an extremely strong tea fragrance and it's a climbing tea. If I can show you. Look at those, and they sort of droop down. But I really love the foliage on this one. And it has these really long red stems. This rose here is called Best Wishes. It's a hybrid tea climber, but I just wanted to show you it has variegated foliage. Very, very rare, and it has a lovely fragrance. And that's my garden that I have to show you so far this year. I do recommend these roses, definitely. If you're looking for easy maintenance shrub roses, there's Winston Churchill and obviously Claire Renaissance. Well, I do think my Mary Rose is looking beautiful at the moment. And obviously if you're going for any David Austin rose, you go for Gertrude. Stunning. So I'll leave you with Gertie, and hopefully you'll join me in my garden again soon. Take care and bye bye.